Well, what is up, everybody? Today I want to introduce you to my friend Andrew, and we're continuing on this series, and Andrew is going to tell you how he does and runs his church social media. Now listen, you might be thinking like, I'm listening to the Hybrid Ministry podcast and like that's what we talk about all the time, and I get it and you're right. However, the thing about Andrew is Andrew just started kind of getting going on social media, and so I want you to see this, how accessible what he does really is. You know, we ended up in a kind of youth ministry cohort together, and I led a workshop on social media, and then sort of because of that and through that, and you'll hear that a little bit here in the interview, Andrew is going to tell you like not only what inspired him, but then also how he has taken that and how he's adapted it for his context. And so I think this is going to be really helpful for you to just see how accessible and how easy it really is to do some of this. And Andrew's doing some stuff and has some content that I don't even do or I haven't recommended. Not that I don't recommend it, but he's doing some unique stuff above and beyond. That's his own idea. And so I think this is going to be really helpful for you and for all of us. So welcome my friend Andrew to the show. Well, hey, what is up, everybody? I am here with none other than Andrew Ostrander. Did I say that right?
You nailed it.
Yes. It doesn't feel like it's that difficult, but it feels like it might trip some people up. You know what I'm saying?
I've gotten Ostrander more than I've ever gotten Ostrander, so
really,
you're in the right.
Yes. Okay. Nice. Good. My intuition was right. So, so you and I, we met through like a youth ministry leader cohort, and we were in like that together on calls together and stuff like that. But I started just kind of noticing and paying attention to you and your like social media, because that's really like the only way to like pay attention to something from someone who lives over 1,000 miles away. And so, but I started noticing, I was like, I like what this guy's doing. And so that's why you're here. Talk to me, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about your social media, but before we do, why don't you let like the people know, like, who are you, where you at, how long you've been in youth ministry, all that, you know, good stuff.
Yep, so you've already touched on it. I'm Andrew Ostrander, and I'm currently the director of student ministries at Wakarusa Missionary Church
Nice.
in a super small town, Wakarusa, Indiana. This is month 7 or 8 of my role in youth ministry. I had volunteered for multiple years beforehand,
Yeah.
but I actually came from the education world, so I was a 5th and 6th grade teacher for 3 years
Yeah.
before this position opened up, and was very clearly that God was shoving me through this doorway into youth ministry.
Nice.
And so that's how I ended up where I am.
Yeah, so you didn't even go to like school for, you know, youth ministry or whatever, and so here you find yourself now kind of like thrust into it. Before we hop into like the particular social media stuff, tell me what's been like the biggest shift or the biggest surprise or the biggest just difference, you know, that you've noticed between your two kind of careers if you put them, you know, side by side.
Yeah, I think there's a glaring amount of similarities that people wouldn't expect between education and ministry, but those are definitely there. I think the biggest difference or thing that we weren't fully prepared for, I was to the point where after God had clearly guided me here and I
Yeah.
knew this is where I needed to be, I was ready to switch jobs. But then the act of switching churches is what really hit us hardest. I had grown up and attended one church for much of
Yeah.
all of my upbringing,
Yeah.
and then most of my adult life after college. And so that was just such a huge change of pace, and where you're so used to being on Sundays, you're no longer there on Sundays. So I think that was the biggest.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and think about it too, like, I mean, I've always said this, but like, when you move and you're in ministry, like, you don't just like move jobs, but like you move everything. Like everything uproots, including your community and your, you know, your church, your family, like your church family, all that type of stuff. So yeah, that is so true and probably super relatable to, you know, most youth pastors. Okay,
I know,
but then, go ahead.
I know you've experienced that even way more than I have, so
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
relate.
Definitely can. But if you're not like used to it or know it, right? Like you're like, whoa, it is a little, you know, culture shocky or whatever, for sure. So, okay. So then, tell me then what sort of like led you towards what you're doing with your student ministry, like social media? Like maybe first of all, what shone a light to you that was like, I should do more than just post announcement, you know, graphics on my social media feed?
Yeah. So I was never a super avid social media user. I was Twitter and sports Twitter was where I was at in college and after.
Yeah.
Uh, but I had just always seen the church, like you said, it's like a, hey, Wednesday night's coming up tomorrow, that type of thing,
Don't
or ice
forget.
skating this Friday.
Yes. Yeah.
Join us for week 3 of this series.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No one cares about
even
the series. Yeah.
even I was like, wow, that's
Yeah.
not that that's dumb, but I was uninspired. And
Right.
so when I started here, I was interested in social media, but then as you touched on the way that we met through that cohort,
Yeah.
you had given a specific lesson, and not to stroke your ego or or build you up, but it's a lot of credit towards you and just how you guided that. It's really stuck with me when you said we know that the students are there
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter how we feel about it or if we like it.
Mm.
Why are we not meeting them where they're at?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so that was just a huge challenge to me of making engaging social media of some sort and
Yeah.
really just trying to get students to buy in.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the cohort was an interactive deal, and the kind of like lesson or whatever that I led on all that was made for exactly that. But I'll link down below an episode that's like really similar to like that conversation that we walked through on that. So if any of you are like, ooh, what was that? Like, you can check that out down below. But so now that was your inspiration sort of. And everyone does things a little different, and my like ebook and stuff like that, I give tips and whatever, but like what exactly did you like, or what have you sort of like stumbled into like doing that's like been working really well for like you and like your particular like church, student ministry, social media?
Yeah. So when talking about the sports social media background that I've
Yeah.
interacted with,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never ran anything as myself, but I've just interacted with that a ton.
Sure.
And so one of the podcasts I'd previously listened to talked about the difference of short form and long form video.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had really, and you had touched on it as well, that the importance and prevalence of short form video.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really where we started to focus in, and without having any studio
Right.
or
Space.
recording
Yeah. Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. For sure.
we really appreciate and love the space that we have. It's not set up for having a quiet, conducive
Right. Right.
recording area for anything longer or even anything specifically for social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really went on the interview style, man on the street style
Yeah.
videos. And so when I transferred over here, one of my former students also came along with me
Oh,
as
cool.
a now volunteer.
That's awesome.
And so I knew that I wouldn't have the capacity on Wednesday nights to record and do all of these.
Yeah.
And so I proposed to him of a weekly routine of when students are welcome into the doors, but we haven't started programming,
Yeah.
that I give him a question of the week, and he goes around and asks random, funny, sometimes not as funny
Sure.
questions just to hear what students say. And
Oh.
the results are pretty amusing.
Bro, there's so much good in that, right? So like couple principles I heard. Number one, like, because this is one of the common pushbacks I feel like I hear is like, I don't have time. And you acknowledge that, right? You knew your limits already, but you were like, that's okay. I'm going to hand this off to somebody else. So like in and of itself right there, genius. Like get it off your plate. You're promoting it, facilitating an opportunity for it to happen. However, so like that's leadership, but you're getting out of the way and delegating and letting somebody else kind of like own it, which is just fantastic. And then the second is, like you said, like you didn't let the constraints of what you felt like your space offered or maybe didn't offer like stop you. And that's again another like thing that I think is so good, because we oftentimes like, well, I don't have, the best equipment or the, bougiest setup or whatever. And it's like, who cares? Like we all carry around a camera in our pockets and the ability to like use that to make, content that ends up where students are, like you said. So good. So tell us a little bit of like, what are some of your favorite questions, or what have been some of the things that have, maybe taken root culturally within your like student ministry that people are like, oh, that video was hilarious because like X, Y, and Z? Like what are some of the funniest ones you've had, or the ones that have gotten the most like talk about afterwards, or, just even been like, the most amusing?
Yeah. The first one that we actually did, so I had wanted to do it after you talked about social media, and I was just
Yeah.
figuring out what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And then my wife and I were out to dinner with two of our volunteers, our sponsors,
Okay.
and we got into controversies or like conspiracy theories that this individual was bigly bought into.
Yeah.
And so that actually stemmed our first question of, do you believe in aliens?
Oh,
And
that's so
so I
funny.
think I think that question has provided the most, like, people would pause and then they automatically had the
Right,
answer
right.
that they believed in,
Oh,
but
so
could
funny.
not explain why or why not
Yeah.
that they believed the way that they did.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. So then how, like, what are you doing for that? Like, tell me what exactly, your volunteer is doing. Is he using his camera? Is he using any gear? Like, get kind of nerdy on us. Like, what actual stuff are you doing to capture it, record it, and then maybe even like edit it?
Yeah. So it's about to be like the lamest set of nerdy equipment that we use.
That's okay.
Uh,
Well, it's here's the thing. Before you answer, like, this is what the boat almost everyone is in, and that's why I love it, is because like you're not letting whatever constraints you feel like you have like stop you. You're just like going for it, and like yeah, it might just be like a cell phone camera or whatever, but like that's okay. Like that, just do it. So yeah, let us have it.
so the compilation of questions that we've come up with is stored on my phone notes app,
Yep.
and then we sit down and decide what question we're going to ask that night, and then it is just a cell phone camera. And
Yeah.
so I had gone online and was looking up for mic options,
Yeah.
quickly realizing that most of them were super expensive. So we have, I think it was like a $10 pair of the lav mics. And it's so cheap and old that my phone is the only one that we can use because it has the lightning connector.
Oh,
And
nice.
so he takes my phone and those
A
$10, $20 lav
$10
mics,
microphone. Yep.
and that is how it gets recorded.
Okay.
We just figured out how to change video settings to try to increase the video quality a little bit,
There you
but
go.
that took a couple months before we got to. And then editing is something that I set aside time for every week.
Yeah.
So I've been using Final Cut Pro
Nice.
on my Mac, and that's, I go through and edit and
Yeah.
change scenes how I want to.
And so then are you just sending him around all throughout the program? Like, is he doing it ahead of time, after, both? Like, what's sort of like his schedule as far as like the interview person?
Yep. So we have like a team volunteer huddle
Mm-hmm.
every Wednesday night. So we're there until 6:15, 6:20.
Yeah.
And then by that time, a lot of the students are here after our doors are open. So he goes out from 6:20 until we start programming at 6:35, 6:40.
Okay.
So he only really does it for 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So some weeks it's pretty limited if it's a longer question, but he
Yeah.
just has that time while students are roaming and choosing what to do before programming starts to get those
Yeah.
interviews in.
So, okay, so now my question is, do you have students who like seek him out now every week, wanting to answer so that they can be on social?
Yes, I have certain students that I see like their video every single week after he records, and I'm pushing like, hey, let's try to get some others. But there's
Yeah, yeah.
clearly students that are super excited, and I see the students that run away from him as soon as
Sure.
they
Yeah,
see the
yeah.
mic out.
Yeah, that's been my experience too, right? Like we do a social challenge every single week and we try to like batch record as much as we can, kind of like you. And almost every week as I like look at the footage after, I'm like, that kid's always in there. And that's fine, right? Like that's fine for them to want to do it because it's whatever. It's how they connect and how they want to connect. Have you noticed any like in-person benefits to what you're doing on social? Like anything that has camaraderie, even just creating conversation because of a certain video or topic or whatever, or the, I don't know, even like the feel and the vibe because you're filming something to go online. Has there been any in-person benefits that you've noticed?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think the specific content or question that
Mm-hmm.
gets talked about for that day, and and then after programming a little bit,
Yeah.
but then that conversation dies down. But and there are a lot of different factors that I think have played into this. But since adding it and rolling it out, and how our ministry has adjusted the pre-service time a little bit,
Yeah.
students are really excited to be there and excited to interact, whether or not it's with a camera in front of them. And so there's
Interesting.
just been that shift of that vibe,
Yeah.
of being willing to be open, or just hanging out together.
That's cool. I like that's a really that not even when I started on this whole journey and podcast and whatever, that's not even a thing that was even like on my radar. But I've noticed that too in our context, and it's really cool to hear that for sure. What would you say, like, is anything that you're maybe like thinking about for the future? Like, this is kind of your current rhythm and iteration. Are you like content with it and you just want to keep doing this? Or what, if you had the capacity, would be something that's maybe on the horizon that you've been thinking about or maybe wanting to do?
So there are multiple different things that where I'm wanting to take it. And so I've
Yeah.
created a weekly posting schedule that I want to figure out either for the end of the school year or just really gear up to do it next school year.
Okay.
We're redesigning a little bit of our space to
Nice.
better meet our needs. And part of that, I'm really trying to push or find a spot to create a more studio-like area so
Yeah.
that we could do longer form or like 5-10 minute videos
Yeah.
while the interviews are happening elsewhere. And so there
Nice.
are lots of different places that I'm wanting to take in it, just seeing whether or not any of them are possible.
Yeah. Cool. So cool. What do you mind? Like, are you able off the top of your head or pull it up? Like, what is your proposed like posting schedule that you want to aim for? Start of next school year.
Yeah. So it would just be the weekdays because I know like
Yeah. Yeah.
content
Yeah.
limits and I try to set time aside to not work.
Yeah. That's great.
Monday, we want to be doing a message Monday. And so
Okay.
that's just a 1-2 minute Devo,
Yeah.
primarily probably just adults. And then I have a student intern. And
Nice.
so just whatever word is laid on our hearts or minds for that day
That's great.
for Monday. Tuesday would be one of our interview style videos. So that's the ones that we're currently posting most frequently.
Yeah.
Uh, the Wednesday one would be dependent on having a space to record it, but I want to do like a Wednesday word from a student. So
Nice.
they again pretty similar to Monday, a minute or two,
Yeah.
Devo reading scripture style video. Thursday, my intern and I have been recording what we think are funny videos when we have internships together. And so Thursday would be that type of video. Right
Yeah.
now, we're asking ChatGPT to create a video for us, and we just act it out.
Yeah.
So those would be Thursday. And then Friday, my idea would be for the slightly longer form video, like drafts or tier list type things, if we
Nice.
have the capability of doing that.
Nice. Cool. Okay. So like last little thing here. What would you say to anybody who was like you know, you're not even a year yet into like student ministry and all the demands and all the things that like come with the job are there and you have to manage it, manage schedules, manage relationships and personalities and like they just feel overwhelmed by even like the thought of social. Like what would just be your encouragement to other youth pastors out there who are maybe on the fence or not sure if kind of doubling down on creating social content is like for them?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things come to mind. The first one you kind of touched on. Uh, it's a mix of starting small
Mm-hmm.
and passing it off. So
Yeah.
my church leadership, my bosses are huge on a leader doesn't have to do everything. Like
Yeah.
we're to the point where it's better if you're training up other people to do it than doing it yourself. So
Yeah.
start
It's great.
small or find someone to do it for you
Yeah.
on your big programming nights, but then also find whatever part of social media sounds fun to you, start with that. Like
Mm.
I've loved editing so far up to this point
Nice.
because I'm amused by it. And so find whatever part of the process you enjoy and really just start and focus there, learning how to do that so that
Yeah.
it's more fun for you.
Yeah. That's so true. Okay. Is there anything else about what you do social media wise that I haven't really asked you, but you're like, this is important. I want to make sure like I share that too.
I think we've touched a lot on it. It's been fun the personal connections that I form through it. So my volunteer that does the Wednesday night, we get
Yeah.
to talk and reflect and discuss it a lot. And
Sure.
then my relationship with my intern has
Mm.
taken a huge upswing because of we're just hanging out together and making stupid, fun youth videos together. And so,
Yeah.
like you asked about the in-person effects,
Yeah.
even just on my personal end, my perspective, it's had a huge impact on
Mm.
relationships that I get to form
Yeah.
because of these seemingly what a lot of people would view as pointless or
Yeah.
menial impact videos.
No, that's actually really like profound. And I really appreciate you saying that because I do think it's more than just, satisfying social media algorithms or feeding the beast, or that's what I call it. Like, you got to keep feeding the beast. But I like that you're saying, like, but there's been some relational equity that kind of comes out of that, and that really is the ultimate goal. Like, if you look at the inception of social, like, it's social, right, in nature. Like, that's where it came from. And so if it's not at least playing a part in that within like the context of your local community, like you might be missing out on it. But the fact that you're doing it is creating a good vibe and good energy, and that's I think one of my main goals always in social is not like to go viral on our church account and have a bunch of views and all that stuff. Like, really, it's to serve our community like best, and then if it goes viral or if it gets a lot of views or whatever, like, that's great, but that's like a secondary thing that I'm looking for. Like, primarily it's just like, I want to serve the students that God has entrusted to me here and disciple them as as best I can through the means and avenues of social. So it's great. Okay, so last thing, like, people want to know, like, if they want to see what you're doing, like, they want to see some of the stuff you're doing, like, where do they go? What can they like go follow and go check out online or whatever?
Yeah, so right now I'm posting on two separate places, the YouTube channel, Walkerusa Student Ministries, and then the Instagram, which is either Walkerusa Student Ministries or Walkie with a Y Student Ministries. I would have to go double check. I'm not sure.
We'll link them both down below. We'll get it locked in. So if you're like, I don't know how to spell Walkerusa, the text down below will be spelled hopefully correctly, and it'll take you where you need to go. So nice. Andrew, anything else before we cut you loose?
I think just obviously with the people that you have or the following you have, it's either of interest to them or could be something that they're already doing. I think it is really just super important to try one. The first video I made lasted me for 3 weeks because you just had enough to work with from it. And so it feels like a huge undertaking. It's not as bad as what I initially went into it expecting.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. It's a new skill for a lot of people. So it is going to feel a little bit overwhelming. But like you said, like, once you kind of get into it, you might learn something. Like, I like editing, like you said, and you'll find a new skill or at least something else that you enjoy. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, for Andrew, this is Nick. We're signing off, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.